Once upon a time, an elderly woman named Madame Celeste, the respected chairwoman of the Sterling family empire, returned to the family's prestigious bank after 3 months of watching from afar and planning with her assistant, Felix, determined to secure the future of her intelligent, mysterious, and wealthy son, Julian Sterling, who was set to take over as CEO despite nobody in the bank knowing what his face looked like. While employees gossiped excitedly about the arriving rich bachelor, Madame Celeste secretly disguised herself as a poor cleaner with cheap, knockoff gold watch to find a genuine wife for Julian, who would love him for himself, immediately facing mockery from a group of arrogant workers who insulted her style until a beautiful, principled accountant named Clara stepped in, defended her, and bravely shut down a nasty colleague named Natalie who tried to mock Clara for being single after, leaving a cheating ex grateful for her kindness. Madame Celeste asked Clara if she would marry her son, and though Clara politely laughed it off due to her past heartbreaks and a cheating ex-colleague at the bank, Madame Celeste reassured her that Julian was raised by her after losing his father and had a pure heart. Right before Julian himself walked in dressed simply, and Madame Celeste introduced him to Clara as the bank's new intern. Madame Celeste secretly arranged for them to work together on a high-profile corporate account, where Clara was instantly impressed by Julian's sharp financial skills when he caught a major transaction discrepancy, while Madame Celeste watched them bonding happily from a distance as she cleaned. Meanwhile, Clara faced intense pressure from her mother, Mrs. Lydia, who called demanding to meet a future son-in-law, forcing Clara to nervously lie that she would bring someone home soon. As the bank buzzed with anticipation for the real CEO's arrival, Natalie arrogantly bragged that she would be chosen for the executive team and insulted Clara for going to a no-name university, prompting Julian to boldly step in and defend Clara by stating that true success comes from lifting others up, which made Clara's heart flutter as they soon went out on a lovely, simple dinner date and grew deeply in love over the following weeks. Driven by bitter jealousy, Natalie plotted to ruin them by secretly tampering with their financial presentation documents for a big client, but Julian caught the error with 10 minutes to spare, allowing him to deliver a flawless presentation, and leaving Natalie boiling with rage as she vowed to catch them slipping next time. Unable to watch Clara suffer any more bullying, Julian decided enough was enough, stood up in the middle of the office, and loudly announced to everyone that he was not an intern, but actually Julian Sterling, the undercover CEO, causing the entire room to fall dead silent before Natalie burst into loud, mocking laughter, refusing to believe him. As the commotion filled the office, the arrogant Natalie sneered at Julian, refusing to believe a poor intern could be the billionaire CEO, while a panicked Clara pulled him aside, begging him to stop impersonating Julian Sterling before he got fired and ruined his life. Even when Julian passionately swore he was telling the truth, Clara desperately pleaded with him to drop the act, a situation that worsened when her cheating ex-colleague, Dominic, stepped in to mock Clara's new fake billionaire boyfriend until Julian coldly warned him about harassment, prompting the HR manager to arrive with security and fire Dominic on the spot. Though Clara feared Dominic would report Julian's lies to the real CEO, Julian promised nothing would ever separate them, leaving Clara determined to personally beg the real Mr. Sterling for mercy when he finally arrived. That evening, Julian secretly ordered his trusted assistant Felix to dress up in a sharp suit and arrive at the bank entrance at exactly 9 a.m. the next morning, acting as the elusive CEO, wanted to secretly observe how the staff reacted. The next morning, the entire bank was buzzing as everyone dressed their best to impress the prodigy, and when Felix walked in exuding corporate confidence, Natalie immediately began to fawn over him to secure an executive role, while Julian watched her sycophancy from a corner and Madame Celeste plotted her final move to secure a professional and graceful Clara for her son. Later that afternoon, Madame Celeste approached Clara, clutching her chest dramatically, pretending to be pale and dying of a weak heart, so she could emotionally guilt Clara into fulfilling her final wish of marrying her son, Julian. Devastated for a frail old woman and facing constant pressure from her mother, Mrs. Lydia, to bring home a fiancé, Clara stared at her phone that evening and took a leap of faith, deciding to marry the kind, penniless in turn to give a dying woman peace. When a worried Julian rushed to his mother's apartment after receiving an urgent text, he found her playing sick on the couch, where she pressured him to marry Clara immediately, orchestrating a meeting the very next day where both Julian and Clara, moved by love and grief, officially agreed to wed. They held a simple, heartfelt ceremony at the local registry office, with Clara looking radiant in a modest white dress, though Julian secretly felt a lingering anxiety that his new wife would leave him if she discovered his grand deception. Following the wedding, workplace tension escalated when a bitterly jealous Natalie stood up during a major team meeting and falsely accused Clara of leaking confidential corporate financial records to their competitors, presenting fabricated email metadata and login records as proof. While Clara froze in shock, Julian clenched his fists on the table, restricted by his intern disguise, but he privately comforted his weeping wife afterward, promising they would fight the career-ending frame-up together. Behind the scenes, Madame Celeste sprang into action, calling in powerful favors to discreetly grant Clara full access to all internal compliance logs and audit systems overnight, determined to crush the wicked girl who had attacked her daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, Felix, still acting as a Proxy CEO, maintained professional distance and ordered a strict investigation into Natalie's evidence, refusing to let her instantly fire Clara. A week later, while working late in the bank to gather her defense, Clara passed a slightly ajar conference room door and overheard her husband arguing with Felix, explicitly stating that he was Julian Sterling, the billionaire CEO, and that he needed to end his undercover intern charade immediately. Stumbling back as the pieces of his financial brilliance and Madame Celeste's pushy behavior finally clicked, Clara confronted Julian in a storm of tears, accusing him of lying to her from the start and marrying her under false pretenses. Julian desperately apologized, reminding her that he had tried to tell the truth in the office when everyone laughed, explaining that he hid his identity out of fear of losing her, which prompted Clara to ask for time to process the shock, though she promised not to leave the man she truly loved. The next morning, Julian officially ended his disguise and resumed his role as a commanding CEO, while Madame Celeste ditched her cleaner uniform, leaving the office in a frenzy of rumors where Natalie loudly bragged that the disgraced intern had finally been fired and that Clara was next. Clara simply smiled in quiet satisfaction, knowing the truth, even as rumors swept the bank that Mr. Sterling had just flown to Paris to buy a multi-million-dollar diamond necklace called a Heart of the Ocean for his wealthy, glamorous childhood first love, Cassandra. Cassandra soon strutted into bank in designer clothes, introducing herself as Julian's rightful future wife and condescendingly mocking Clara, causing doubts to creep into Clara's heart until Julian picked her up from work, pulled the car over, and presented her with the real velvet box containing the genuine Paris necklace. Assuring Clara that Cassandra was a meaningless piece of his past, he fastened the millions-worth necklace on his true wife, and they drove off to show a thrilled Madame Celeste. The next day, armed with Madame Celeste's internal audit data, Clara confidently led an investigation panel, presenting undeniable metadata proving Natalie had used her own login to fake the leaks, alongside late-night security footage of Natalie tampering with the files. As a pale Natalie erupted in rage, the door swung open and a remorseful Cassandra walked in, confessing that she had partnered with Natalie out of pure jealousy to ruin Clara. Julian stepped forward, officially dismissing Natalie for violating bank policies, while Felix and security escorted both saboteurs out of the building. Turning to the shocked employees, Julian publicly announced that his intern days were over, declaring his true identity as CEO Julian Sterling, and proudly introducing Clara as his wife. As the terrified staff begged Mrs. Sterling for forgiveness, Clara gracefully lectured them that workplace bullying is unethical and unacceptable whether directed at the rich or poor, a stance Julian firmly backed by threatening termination for any future harassment. Sitting in his grand executive office later, Clara thanked Julian for always standing by her, prompting Julian to reveal that he had actually fallen in love with her years ago when they were teenagers. He vividly remembered a day when Clara had bravely stood up to a group of school bullies to protect a shaking, smart boy, a moment of pure courage that inspired him to become a powerful man who could protect others just like she did. Julian then revealed that he had recognized Clara immediately upon seeing her on his first morning as an intern, confessing that he had been holding on to his love for her since he was a scared teenager, prompting a thrilled Madame Celeste to playfully demand grandchildren. However, the bitter Cassandra sneaked into their mansion to poison Julian's wine out of spite, but Madame Celeste caught her in the act, ordered security to throw her out permanently, and mischievously locked Julian and Clara in a room together to ensure they spent quality time bonding. 2 weeks later, during a peaceful family dinner, Clara suddenly felt sick and rushed to the hospital, where the doctor joyfully announced that she was pregnant, a blessing that healed her lingering fears of being labeled a gold digger, as Julian and Madame Celeste warmly reassured her that she was truly part of their family. Afterward, Julian bravely accompanied a nervous Clara to face her mother, Mrs. Lydia, who was initially shocked and angry to discover her daughter had secretly wed, but she ultimately gave her blessing and welcomed Julian as her son upon learning the full story and the pregnancy news, warning him with a laugh never to make her daughter cry. Meanwhile, an embittered Cassandra and a jobless Natalie plotted revenge by fabricating an online gossip scandal claiming Clara had trapped the billionaire CEO with a pregnancy, causing immediate workplace whispers until Julian defiantly called a live press briefing at the bank, standing beside his wife to publicly clear her name, expose the saboteurs, and announce an upcoming grand traditional wedding. Julian also appointed Clara to lead a new staff ethics unit to permanently eliminate workplace bullying, while a thorough bank investigation officially linked Natalie and Cassandra to the fraudulent blog payments, leaving Natalie completely disgraced, and Cassandra tearfully remorseful after her own father scolded her for losing Julian to her own toxic pride. Their grand traditional Igbo wedding was a beautiful, tearful celebration where Clara wore stunning traditional coral beads. Her mother wept tears of joy, and Madame Celeste proudly gifted Clara a family heirloom gold bracelet that once belonged to Julian's late grandmother, welcoming her forever as a true Sterling. A few days later, they held a simple, heartfelt white wedding free of secrets, and as months passed, Clara's pregnancy grew alongside a reformed bank culture where interns and cleaners were finally treated with dignity. Relaxing on their balcony one evening, Clara smiled at the beautiful craziness of her journey from a poor accountant to a billionaire's wife, laughing as a determined Madame Celeste interrupted them with a pre-written list of baby names, leaving Clara resting her hands on her stomach, completely happy, deeply loved, and no longer afraid of tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed this story and you haven't subscribed yet, please click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, so you'll be the first to know whenever I upload more interesting stories. Your support means a lot to me, and I truly do not take it for granted. Thank you once again for watching. I'll see you in my next video.